My name is Vespera Thorne. As a 31-year-old trauma nurse, I thought I had seen every conceivable way a person could wound the people they claimed to love. That was until I woke up from emergency surgery to discover my mother, Lucinda, had posted photos of me unconscious and hooked up to IV lines. Before any doctor could even update me on my condition, she broadcasted my worst night to her 80,000 followers, complete with a candle emoji and a promotional discount code. My family brushed it off as her way of grieving, but I saw it for the cruel exploitation it was and walked out of her life permanently. 2 years passed before Lucinda showed up at my doorstep, devoid of makeup or cameras, begging for reconciliation and swearing she had changed. Instead of slamming the door in her face, I met her at a diner and slid a handwritten page from my notebook across the table. What was written on that paper, and how she reacted to its final line, altered the course of our family forever. To understand that list, you have to go back to my childhood home in Oak Creek, Indiana. I was 8 years old when Lucinda started a lifestyle blog named The Bright Family Corner. What began as innocent photos of family dinners quickly transformed our home into a permanent production set. Meals went cold while she chased the perfect lighting, and I had designated shooting outfits before I even learned cursive. My father, Garrison, worked long hours as an electrician, yet came home only to build custom ring light stands to support her vision. The blog brought in real money that paid for my braces and summer camps, but Lucinda framed her constant surveillance as unconditional love. I accepted it until I turned 13, when she published an article titled Vespera's First Cycle, a bright guide to raising confident young women, complete with a photo of me crying on the bathroom floor taken through a cracked door. At school, boys left sanitary products on my desk while teachers offered patronizing sympathy. I fought back, tearing down the backdrop curtains in my bedroom and refusing to participate in promotional videos. Instead of yelling, Lucinda weaponized guilt, reminding me that the camera paid for our home. Garrison occasionally removed a frame if I pleaded, but he never dared to turn off the lens. When I was 14, Lucinda brought home my new baby sister, Maya, instantly incorporating her as the fresh face of the brand. I held my infant sister in the hospital lobby, promising her she would never be forced to perform, a promise I was eventually forced to break when I left. At 24, I moved to Chicago, putting myself through nursing school on grueling night shifts and setting one non-negotiable boundary: no photos of me ever again. Around that time, I met Kalen, a civil engineer who knew nothing about my mother's online brand. He learned that I kept him several steps back from my family, and eventually realized I kept him at a distance as well, as privacy had become my primary defense mechanism. When I found out I was pregnant at 29, Kalen was the only person I told. I cherished 11 quiet weeks of a private life, but during a grueling Tuesday night shift, I suffered a sudden, agonizing internal tear. My ectopic pregnancy had ruptured, triggering a life-threatening medical emergency. They rushed me into emergency surgery under the harsh glare of operating lights. Meanwhile, Kalen was mid-flight over Texas with his phone off, completely unreachable in the single hour I needed him most. Because he couldn't be reached, the hospital moved down my emergency contact list and called my mother, Lucinda. Part of me was secretly relieved when she was admitted as my next of kin while I lay in recovery. I woke up at 4:00 a.m. to a tired-looking nurse delivering the devastating news. My pregnancy was gone along with one fallopian tube, but I was going to be fine. I nodded, asked for water, and noticed an aide by the door staring at me a bit too long before quickly looking away. Reaching for my phone on the bedside table, I flipped it over to find a relentless stream of hundreds of notifications, all tagging me in my mother's newest post. The photo was taken directly from the foot of my recovery bed. I was unconscious, pale, with IV lines in my arm and a tube under my nose. Lucinda had framed the shot perfectly, captioning it, "Our family is walking through unthinkable loss tonight," revealing the secret pregnancy I had told no one about. She urged followers to hug your babies, then attached an affiliate link for a grief journal and a discount code for a candle company. The post was already her highest performing content in over a year, flooded with comments from thousands of strangers praying for me, people who knew about my lost baby, before Kalen's plane had even landed. He discovered he was no longer a father from a phone notification in a rental car via his mother-in-law's shopping page. My own hospital colleagues had seen the humiliating photo. When Lucinda walked into my room holding cheap gas station flowers and glowing from the online engagement, she beamed, "Honey, the response has been incredible. People need to see this." When I quietly asked her to take it down, she patted my leg condescendingly. Standing over my IV pole, she delivered a firm corporate refusal. "Sweetheart, it's already reached 90,000 people. If I delete it now, it looks like we're hiding something." When I demanded privacy, she turned into the victim, dabbing at dry eyes and claiming I was punishing her for loving too hard. My father, Garrison, stood passively in the doorway holding her camera bag, staring silently at the floor. Then I noticed my 15-year-old sister, Maya, in the hallway, holding up a phone through the window. When our eyes met, Maya paled, lowered the phone, and mouthed, "Mom told me to get footage of you two making up for the vlog." In that moment, a cold clarity washed over me. Lucinda was never going to respect a boundary. There was no part of my life, awake or unconscious, that she wouldn't sell for views. Upon my discharge, I returned to Chicago and refused to make a scene. I blocked her calls, emails, and social accounts, sending one final text: "Until you understand what you took from me, don't call." Lucinda responded the only way she knew how. Within a week, she published a 9-minute video titled, "My daughter left me while I was grieving," weeping on camera about how cruel I was. Her audience hunted down my professional profile, flooding my employer with 1-star reviews labeling me a heartless nurse. Relatives called to lecture me that family comes first, unable to cite a single medical detail about my surgery. My father never reached out at all. She traded my privacy away, leaving me to bear the full weight of the emotional fallout. In a single month, I lost my mother, my father, and my younger sister in that yellow house, along with my right to control my own story. For 2 years, my entire world was reduced to a locked door, a quiet partner, and a demanding job where I felt useful. Then, on a gray Tuesday in October, my doorbell rang. Condense those 2 years. I found a therapist, Dr. Carroll, who offered support without forcing it. At work, I specialized in severe trauma cases, mastering the field through a painful, lived understanding. Kalen proposed on an ordinary Sunday, the ring worn warm from sitting in his jacket pocket for months. I told him, not yet. When he asked if it was because of him, I told him the truth. It wasn't, but I couldn't explain further, guarded by the lingering shadows of that hospital night. I kept my deepest grief, the name I had chosen for my lost baby, June, and the unspoken count toward her, filed safely out of reach. Meanwhile, I secretly monitored Lucinda's channel under an anonymous account, tracking her content like watching the weather in a land I'd fled. My 17-year-old sister, Maya, had become the primary product. Lucinda rebranded to Raising Maya, monetizing every personal milestone, driving tests, dress shopping, and acne routines. One video kept me awake until 3:00 a.m., Maya's first heartbreak, how our family copes. After a boy broke up with Maya over text, Lucinda staged her tear-stained face at the kitchen counter with a hot cocoa mug as a prop. Maya kept looking off camera, silently pleading to be finished, but the video ran to completion, gathering over 1 million views, sponsored by a tea brand. Disgusted, I reached Maya through her friend's older sister using a burner number. Maya called from inside her closet, whispering her turmoil. She craved the online affection but hated the camera, unable to distinguish being loved from being watched. I offered her a safe haven with me, free of phones. That same week, I quietly saved details about a newly passed state law regulating child influencers, which mandated trust funds and strict parental accounting. Soon after, the internet turned against Lucinda. A former child vlogger published a viral essay on media exploitation, putting Lucinda's channel under public scrutiny. Online sleuths unearthed the hospital photo of my emergency recovery, exposing the affiliate candle code linked beside my unconscious face. Major sponsors dropped her, and the algorithm abandoned her. Lucinda posted an insincere apology, but the public saw through the performance, sending her channel into freefall. Watching her downfall brought me no satisfaction. The outrage was just more content, and my family remained the raw material. I realized then that public retaliation was not my path. 3 weeks after her final sponsor withdrew, on that gray October Tuesday, the doorbell rang. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. My mother stood in the hallway stripped of her usual online persona, no makeup, gray hair visible at her part, wearing an old cardigan and completely empty-handed. Opening the door just a crack, I listened as she spoke with a quiet hesitation, admitting to 3 months of therapy and taking accountability. Then came her real plea. Thanksgiving is in 6 weeks. Come home. Not for me, for Maya, for your father. I've changed, Vespera. Give me a chance to prove it. Standing in my scrubs, I analyzed her through my clinical lens. Her tears were genuine, but the real question was whether a person who spent 2 decades performing could ever truly change. I simply replied, "I'll think about it," and closed the door. Peering through the curtains, I watched her sit silently in her parked car for 10 full minutes without reaching for her phone, a gesture that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. The dilemma weighed on me heavily. Kalen gently pointed out, "You keep guarding a door, Vespera, and calling it a life." His words stung because they were true. In keeping my mother out, I had shut out everyone else, including my 17-year-old sister, Maya, who was whispering to me from closets. Shutting the door on my mother meant abandoning Maya, who needed a witness to her life inside those walls. I decided to move forward based on verifiable actions rather than empty promises. Sitting at my kitchen table, I wrote 4 non-negotiable conditions in block letters on a sheet of notebook paper, folding over the final line meant only for myself. We met at a neutral diner off Route 59, where I slid the terms across the table. 1. Never post about Maya or me again. No photos, throwbacks, or vague updates. 2. Permanently remove every past video and photo across all platforms, including 2 decades of content, the hospital post, and intimate personal milestones. 3. Continue weekly sessions with a licensed therapist without turning her recovery into content or documentaries. 4. Apologize to Maya privately in person, without a script or audience, and never mention it online. Lucinda read the conditions twice. Pointing to the folded 5th line, she asked what it was. "That one's not yours yet," I replied. "If you complete the first 4, you'll hear it." When she asked how long it would take, I told her true progress happens when the cameras are off. She folded the paper, slipped it into her purse, and murmured, "You write lists like my mother never did." What followed was unexpected. That very night, her online feed froze without a grand public exit post, and over the next 3 weeks, the massive digital archive began to vanish. A complex mixture of relief and grief washed over me as 2 decades of family records were systematically erased. We established a routine of meeting for awkward 40-minute Sunday coffee sessions at the diner. She arrived early each time, keeping her phone hidden away. Yet one single artifact remained untouched, the viral photo of me lying unconscious in the hospital room. As the rest of the channel fell away, that single square stayed active, silently accumulating views. When I pressed my mother about her promised archived content, her response was dismissive. "The platform archive is complicated, honey." To a nurse like me, complicated meant hiding something. I logged the suspicion like a vital sign waiting to spike. Days later, Maya texted, "Mom apologized to me last night. No script," she cried ugly. Lucinda had even acknowledged the deep trauma she had inflicted, saying words no script could ever write. Yet my relief vanished when Maya added, "Come get me this weekend. There's something in her office you need to see." Maya spent the weekend at my apartment. During the car ride, she revealed that our mother had been taking secretive phone calls in the closed garage from her manager, Priya. Worse, Maya had sneaked past the home office and noticed the whiteboard. Though freshly wiped, faint ghost text remained, showing outline columns for upcoming episodes. On Sunday evening, Maya opened her banking app on my couch. After 10 years of being the central face of our mother's lucrative brand, Maya's account held almost nothing, just a couple $100 from minor odd jobs. The praised college fund featured in countless sponsored posts did not exist. The earnings had been systematically funneled into the family LLC to finance the family home, vehicle leases, and production equipment. Her childhood had been legally drained to subsidize our family's lifestyle. Instead of initiating an emotional confrontation, I used my nursing instincts to address the issue systematically. On Monday morning, I reached out to an advocacy organization for child content creators, who directed me to Ruth Calloway, an experienced attorney specializing in child protection laws. In Ruth's office, I presented a clear timeline. She explained that under new state regulations, Maya was legally entitled to a financial trust set aside from all past monetized content featuring her as a minor. If our mother refused to cooperate, Maya had legal grounds to pursue full recovery upon turning 18 in a few short months. Ruth Calloway slid the legal representation agreement across her desk. Signing it meant replacing emotional family arguments with formal legal proceedings, the one arena where Lucinda could no longer manipulate the narrative. Signing that trust agreement felt like trying to shock life back into a dying family dynamic. The legal notice reached my mother, Lucinda, on Thursday. By Friday, she requested a meeting, accompanied not by an attorney, but by Aunt Sarah, using family loyalty as her primary shield. We met at a local diner on my terms. Before the coffee even arrived, Aunt Sarah launched into an attack, accusing me of betraying my own mother. I let her words wash over me in silence. Lucinda stayed unusually quiet, eventually placing a hand on her sister's arm to stop her. Looking at me with a strange blend of defeat and vulnerability, Lucinda insisted she would never fight Maya on her money. The meeting ended without shouting, a rare anomaly in our family. That night, my estranged father, Garrison, called me for the first time in 2 years, his voice filled with regret. He admitted he should have stopped the filming years ago and offered his full support. Yet he dropped one final warning. Her manager, Priya, had been visiting the house secretly, meeting Lucinda in the driveway out of earshot. Surprisingly, Lucinda signed the trust agreement without stalling, waiving all counter-negotiations. My attorney, Ruth Calloway, noted how extraordinarily rare it was for parents to comply so quickly. Small family dinners resumed, free of cameras or ring lights. Lucinda talked openly about her therapy, clumsily trying to unlearn her addiction to public attention. For the first time in years, genuine, unscripted laughter filled the room. I began to feel a dangerous sense of hope. Then, during a shift at the hospital, Ruth Calloway called with an urgent update. The next morning in her office, she turned her monitor toward me. On the screen was a professional pitch deck for streaming platforms titled Bright Side, The Road Home, subtitled A Mother's Redemption, One Daughter at a Time. Outline slides detailed a 6-episode arc featuring an unannounced, doorstep reunion, complete with brand sponsorships for therapy apps and home goods. The file properties revealed the pitch deck had been created 6 weeks before Lucinda ever showed up at my doorstep. Every step of our recent reconciliation, the diner meeting, the tears, the private conversations, had been mapped out as part of a scripted narrative arc. However, one detail stuck out. Despite the deck being 6 weeks old, Lucinda had not yet signed the deal. I printed the document and drove straight to her house. Walking into the kitchen, I laid the paper on the counter and asked, "Which episode is this, Mom?" Lucinda didn't feign shock. She sat down and admitted that after her main channel collapsed, Priya had brought her the streaming deal as a financial lifeline. Lucinda viewed the redemption deal as her only life raft, a way to save the refinanced house and publicly repair our fractured family. She insisted she hadn't signed anything yet, and that her repentance was genuine, but the line between her real emotions and the staged drama remained completely blurred. I told her that true reconciliation required turning off the cameras, then left before she could see me break down. At 2 a.m., Maya called me in secret from her closet. She explained that if Lucinda rejected the contract, our parents would lose the house. Furthermore, the payout from the show was the only way Lucinda could afford to pay into Maya's court-ordered trust fund and cover her upcoming college tuition. Exhausted, 17-year-old Maya admitted she was willing to endure one more season of reality TV to secure her future. Hearing my sister volunteer to sacrifice herself to the content machine forced me to realize that simple opposition wasn't enough. I had to give her a real alternative. Before taking my next step, I visited Aunt Sarah to understand what drove my mother. Aunt Sarah pulled out a dusty shoebox, containing childhood photos of Lucinda growing up in a neglected, cold household where children were expected to be invisible. One photo showed 9-year-old Lucinda beaming at a county fair with a prize ribbon. A stranger had taken the picture, and Lucinda had slept with it under her pillow for years because it was the only time she felt seen. While this didn't excuse her exploitation of us, I realized that to Lucinda, a camera was never an enemy. It was the only proof of love and validation she had ever known. On Saturday evening, the family gathered for the decisive dinner where Priya brought the official contract. Arriving at the house, I found the scene staged like a classic holiday set, complete with a glowing ring light and a tripod setup in the den. Priya smoothly dismissed the equipment as mere background footage, promising nothing would air without approval. Lucinda looked at me with silent, desperate panic, yet she hadn't turned the cameras off. My father, Garrison, sat frozen in quiet compliance, while Maya signaled to me from across the table, waiting to see how I would play my final hand. Priya smoothly outlined the deal over dinner: 6 full episodes, complete debt clearance, and guaranteed funding for Maya's college tuition. Turning to me, Priya insisted the public deserved my side of the story, a chance to erase 2 years of being vilified as the cold daughter who abandoned her family. For a fleeting 10 seconds, I was tempted. I imagined the online hate turning into public apologies and my reputation finally restored. But looking directly into the glowing halo of the ring light aimed at the couch, I snapped back to reality. I stood up, walked into the den, and killed the power, plunging the room into the raw, honest darkness of a late autumn evening. I confronted Priya first, revealing that Maya's trust fund was already legally secured and filed through our lawyer, Ruth Calloway. Her future would not be held hostage by a TV network. As Priya opened her briefcase in stunned, professional silence, I turned to my mother with my final condition. Unfolding a paper, I offered her a single hour alone with me. No cameras, no audience, and no story she could ever monetize. If she still wanted to sign Priya's contract afterward, I would walk away forever, taking Maya's secure future with me. My father, Garrison, escorted Priya outside while Maya went upstairs, leaving Lucinda and me alone under the hum of the kitchen vent. For the first time, I surrendered my deepest secret: the loss of my pregnancy 11 weeks in, the name June I had never uttered aloud, and the crushing betrayal of watching my grief converted into online promotional discount codes. Stripped of her artificial lighting and performative persona, Lucinda sat crying across from me, looking broken, aged, and exposed. In a faint voice, she asked how anyone would know she had changed if no one was watching, to which I replied simply, "I will." Driven by my confession, Lucinda walked out to the porch and handed the unsigned folder back to Priya, turning down the show, the special, and the media comeback entirely. Over the following weeks, my mother and Maya sat together at the computer, setting 2 decades of public video archives to private and deleting their digital footprint item by item. The family home was listed for sale in November as my parents downsized to a smaller, quieter life built on privacy rather than public approval. On my side of the ledger, I finally confessed everything to Kaylin, including the name June. 2 years late, but exactly on time, I asked if the engagement ring was still available. It was. My mother's growth, however, remains an ongoing practice rather than a finished destination. During Maya's birthday dinner, she instinctively reached for her phone when the lighted cake was brought out, only to catch herself, put the device face down on the counter, and look back at me across the candles. In our family now, true progress is measured entirely by moments that never get posted online. Thanksgiving returned to us 2 years late, held inside a cramped 2-bedroom brick rental where nobody recorded a single second. Despite the dry turkey and my father Garrison's rambling stories, it was the best holiday of my life. That week, Maya received her early college acceptance letter and purposefully read it aloud from printed paper, free from standing smartphone stands or recording lights. Near the end of the evening, Lucinda handed me a shoe box filled with real, printed photos, candid outtakes of us laughing, sleeping, and existing off-camera that had never been turned into digital content. Hand-labeled for an audience of one, it represented the preserved negative space of my childhood, everything genuine that was only ever meant for us to see. Maya starts college in the fall, her trust fund fully unlocking on her birthday under her own signature and terms. Reading her application essays about growing up online brought me to tears, knowing that for the first time, the person living the story was the one telling it. While the internet machine continues trending with new exploited families, I couldn't fix the whole digital landscape, but I fixed our kitchen table. Lucinda now has my phone number and my Sunday afternoons, though she no longer asks for my photograph. Forgiveness isn't a gate you swing wide open. It is a quiet contract renewed each season in a room where the cameras stay permanently off. Love that requires an audience was never love at all. It was just applause. Real love is the only thing that holds you when every light in the house is finally turned off.